In life, we often look for grand gestures, massive transformations, or revolutionary ideas to create meaningful change. We think that for anything to truly matter, it has to be monumental, visible, and immediate. But the truth is far simpler and perhaps more profound. Sometimes all it takes is one small shift, one single rule or principle that we decide to live by to completely change the trajectory of our lives. This is the essence of the power of a single rule. It is not flashy. It does not demand attention, but it quietly, persistently reshapes everything it touches like a stone thrown into a still pond, sending ripples far beyond the initial point of contact. The concept of a single rule transforming everything may seem almost too simple to believe. Human nature tends to overcomplicate things. We think if I just work harder, do more, I will succeed. Yet often hard work alone without a guiding principle or a strategic shift can lead to exhaustion without meaningful results. A single rule functions differently. It acts as a compass giving direction to all of our actions, decisions, and intentions. It aligns our choices with our values, our priorities, and our deeper purpose. When we introduce a single, clear rule into our lives, we stop moving aimlessly. We stop chasing outcomes that don't matter and begin to focus our energy on what truly does. Consider the power of small, consistent choices. The difference between extraordinary success and mediocrity often does not lie in rare, extraordinary moments, but in the accumulation of small, deliberate actions guided by a principle. A single rule serves as the anchor for these actions. It acts as the standard by which we measure every decision, every opportunity, and every interaction. Without such a rule, life can feel like a series of random events, leaving us reactive rather than proactive. With it, every choice, no matter how minor, contributes to a larger intentional outcome. For example, imagine a person who adopts a rule to always prioritize relationships over transactions. On the surface, this might seem simple, even obvious. Yet this one rule shifts the way they interact with colleagues, clients, friends, and family. Instead of seeing people as mere stepping stones to an objective, they begin to genuinely invest in understanding, helping, and supporting others. Opportunities arise naturally, trust is built, and influence grows, all because a single guiding principle shapes every choice. It demonstrates that the magnitude of impact is not always proportional to the size of the action, but often to the clarity and consistency of the principle behind it. This idea applies not only to personal life, but also to leadership, business, and society. Leaders who adopt a single unifying rule can inspire teams, cultures, and organizations in ways that no strategy, plan, or campaign can achieve alone. When employees or team members sense a clear principle guiding decisions, it builds trust, loyalty, and alignment. They no longer have to guess the right course of action. They simply look to the rule, and it lights the way. A well-chosen rule, consistently applied, creates a framework for sustainable success that transcends fleeting trends or temporary fixes. One of the most remarkable aspects of a single rule is its simplicity. Complexity often paralyzes us. When faced with a maze of options, conflicting advice, or overwhelming choices, it is easy to freeze or make decisions that contradict our goals. A simple, well-defined rule cuts through the noise. It provides clarity and focus, and it becomes the lens through which we evaluate everything else. When life presents challenges, obstacles, or distractions, the rule acts as a guiding light, keeping us aligned with our core intentions and helping us to act decisively. However, the power of a single rule is not automatic. Its effectiveness depends on commitment, consistency, and reflection. A rule must be actively practiced and embedded into daily life. It is not enough to simply declare it. We must live it, test it, and adapt to it without compromise. The transformative power emerges not when we know the rule intellectually, but when we internalize it and allow it to influence our behavior at every level. Over time, this creates a compound effect. Small choices made in alignment with a single principle begin to accumulate, leading to profound, almost exponential impact. Furthermore, adopting a single rule can shift our mindset in ways that extend beyond tangible outcomes. It influences how we perceive challenges, setbacks, and failures. When guided by a clear principle, obstacles are no longer mere barriers but opportunities to apply the rule with creativity and resilience. Mistakes become lessons aligned with a larger purpose rather than random misfortunes. The psychological clarity provided by a guiding rule reduces stress, increases confidence, and fosters a sense of meaning that is often missing in lives driven solely by external success metrics. History and human experience are full of examples where one guiding principle reshaped entire lives, movements, or organizations. The rule may be as simple as a serve first, act with integrity, or a seek growth over comfort. Yet the outcomes are profound, influencing generations and creating legacies that outlast the individual. This demonstrates that a single rule does not just guide immediate behavior. It has the potential to shift culture, redefine standards, and create systemic change. Ultimately, the power of a single rule lies in its ability to focus, simplify, and amplify. It allows us to stop chasing distractions, stop overcomplicating our actions, and stop trying to solve everything at once. Instead, we cure to align with one principle that matters most and let it shape our decisions, relationships, and priorities. This is not a small thing. It is a radical shift in approach that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. By committing to one rule, we harness the potential of intentionality, consistency, and clarity, qualities that, when compounded over time, shift everything in ways we cannot always anticipate but can always trust will be meaningful. In the end, the lesson is clear. The search for massive transformation does not always require massive effort. Sometimes it requires courage, the courage to define a single guiding rule and the discipline to live by it consistently. The ripples of that decision will reach far beyond the immediate, touching every aspect of life and creating an impact that is far greater than the simplicity of the rule itself. The power of a single rule is real, profound, and accessible to anyone willing to embrace it. It is the reminder that transformation often begins not with complexity but with clarity, not with quantity but with quality, not with many rules but with one rule that changes everything. 1,000 words without subheadings, and any suggestion life often moves faster than we can keep up with. And in the midst of the hustle, we rarely stop to question how we approach the challenges, opportunities, and decisions that define our journey. Most of us operate on autopilot, following routines and habits that have been ingrained over years, sometimes decades, without ever pausing to consider if there is a better way. Yet the difference between stagnation and extraordinary growth often lies not in working harder or longer, but in thinking differently. Rethinking your approach, making a single strategic shift in perspective, mindset, or behavior can fundamentally transform your life in ways that effort alone cannot achieve. The power of a shift begins with awareness. Many people believe they are doing everything right, yet they remain frustrated by results that don't match their efforts. This gap is not always about skill, intelligence, or perseverance. It is about approach. A slight adjustment, a new rule, a new habit, a new lens through which to see the world can magnify the effectiveness of everything you do. Life often rewards alignment more than activity. When your approach is out of sync with your values, strengths, or purpose, you expend tremendous energy with minimal impact. When you rethink your approach and make it intentional, efficiency, effectiveness, and satisfaction increase simultaneously. To rethink your approach requires courage because it challenges what you have always believed to be true. It asks you to question assumptions that may have been guiding your decisions for years, sometimes without your conscious awareness. This can be uncomfortable. It may feel like abandoning certainty or stepping into unfamiliar territory, but it is precisely this discomfort that signals growth. When you are willing to pause, reflect, and reconsider the way you operate, you create space for innovation, creativity, and transformation. A single shift in perspective can break the cycle of repeated mistakes and open doors that previously seemed closed. One of the most powerful ways a shift can transform life is through mindset. Consider how a subtle change in thinking can influence every decision and interaction. Shifting from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance, for instance, changes how you respond to competition, collaboration, and opportunity. It moves you from fear-driven choices to values-driven choices. Similarly, shifting from a reactive mindset to a proactive one transforms how you approach challenges. Problems become puzzles to solve rather than obstacles to fear. Opportunities are seen earlier, and potential risks are managed more effectively. A single shift in mindset acts like a lever, amplifying your actions and guiding them toward better outcomes. Behavioral shifts are equally transformative. Often, it is not enough to simply think differently. We must act differently. Yet many people wait for perfect conditions or dramatic motivation before changing behavior. The truth is that meaningful change begins with small, deliberate adjustments that are aligned with a new perspective. By shifting just one habit or adopting a new guiding principle, you can change the trajectory of your day, your week, and ultimately your life. This is because behavior and mindset are interlinked. Change one and the other follows. A single behavioral shift can create momentum, building confidence and reinforcing the new way of approaching challenges. Relationships, both personal and professional, also benefit from rethinking approach. Too often, interactions are transactional rather than intentional. People expect outcomes without understanding the process, seek results without fostering connection, and prioritize efficiency over empathy. By making a shift, such as committing to listen more deeply, prioritize understanding, or act with integrity consistently, you change not only the way others perceive you, but also the quality of the relationships you build. This demonstrates that transformation is not confined to internal growth. It radiates outward, influencing the people, communities, and environments around you. Another critical element of transformation through a shift is clarity of purpose. Many people work tirelessly without ever asking whether their efforts align with what truly matters to them. A simple shift, pausing to identify priorities, clarify values, and define a meaningful goal, can reorganize time, energy, and attention in ways that make every action more impactful. When purpose guides approach, effort is amplified, and results often exceed expectations. The shift itself becomes a catalyst for progress because it aligns intention with action. It transforms busy work into meaningful work and superficial success into fulfillment. Importantly, the impact of a shift is cumulative. While one small change may seem inconsequential in the moment, its effects ripple through every area of life. For example, choosing to adopt a mindset of learning rather than judgment affects how you respond to criticism, how you handle mistakes, and how you seek opportunities for growth. Each decision thereafter builds on the first, creating a compounding effect that gradually reshapes your trajectory. This highlights a critical insight. Transformation does not require massive, immediate change. It requires one intentional shift, followed by consistent alignment with that new approach. Shifts are also powerful because they break the patterns of predictability that limit growth. Humans are creatures of habit, and habits often constrain creativity and limit perspective. When you rethink your approach, you disrupt these patterns. You stop reacting to life in the same ways, stop defaulting to old solutions, and begin exploring new paths. This disruption can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary for transformation. By challenging ingrained habits and assumptions, you invite innovation, resilience, and adaptability, qualities essential for thriving in a constantly changing world. Moreover, the transformative power of a shift is not limited to the individual level. It extends to organizations, communities, and society at large. When leaders, teams, or groups adopt a single intentional shift in approach, whether prioritizing collaboration over competition, long-term impact over short-term gain, or empathy over efficiency, the results can be profound. Systems, cultures, and norms begin to evolve, creating an environment that supports growth, creativity, and meaningful impact. This illustrates that the principle of one shift transforming everything is universal. It applies internally and externally, personally and collectively. Ultimately, rethinking your approach is a reminder that progress is not always about more effort, more resources, or more time. It is about alignment. It is about stepping back from routine, assumptions, and autopilot behavior to identify a smarter, more effective, and more intentional way forward. The shift may be subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but its effects multiply over time. It transforms how you see challenges, how you make decisions, how you engage with others, and how you navigate life's inevitable uncertainty. It is both a lens and a lever, clarifying what matters and amplifying its impact. The lesson is simple yet profound. Transformation is not always about what you do differently. It is often about how you think differently and how a single shift in approach can redefine everything. When you are willing to question, reflect, and adjust, you open the door to possibilities that were previously invisible. One shift executed with intention and consistency can move you from frustration to fulfillment, from uncertainty to clarity, and from ordinary outcomes to extraordinary results. Life does not need to be complicated to be powerful. Sometimes it simply requires a willingness to see things differently and the courage to act on that new perspective. The right shift at the right time can truly transform everything. If you want, I can continue with heading 3 in the same style, so that we can eventually have a full motivational speech script. Do you want me to do that? Habits shape the trajectory of our lives in ways that are both subtle and profound. They are the invisible architecture of daily living, guiding our decisions, actions, and ultimately our results. Most people underestimate the power of habits because they are often so ingrained that we perform them automatically, without conscious thought. Yet these patterns determine whether we reach our potential or remain trapped in cycles of mediocrity. Breaking old habits is not just about stopping a behavior. It is about creating space for new possibilities, unlocking growth, and freeing ourselves from the constraints we may not even realize we have accepted. The first challenge in breaking old habits is awareness. What? Many habits are so automatic that we do not even recognize them as habits. They are simply the way we do things. We justify them with rationalizations, telling ourselves, this is normal, or I've always done it this way. But the problem is that habitual behaviors, especially those that no longer serve us, act like anchors. They keep us tethered to patterns of thinking and action that limit potential. By observing ourselves honestly and identifying habits that undermine our growth, we take the first critical step toward transformation. Awareness is the spark that ignites change. Without it, no effort to break a habit will last because the behavior is unconscious. Breaking a habit also requires understanding its roots. Every habit exists for a reason. It has a cue, a routine, and a reward. Habits develop as mechanisms for coping, comfort, or efficiency, and they are reinforced over time by the outcomes they produce. Some habits are protective, like avoiding discomfort, while others are limiting, such as procrastination or self-doubt. By examining the triggers that lead to a habit and the benefits it provides, we gain insight into why it has persisted. This understanding is crucial because it allows us to replace the old habit with a new one that fulfills the same need in a healthier, more productive way. Simply trying to suppress a habit without addressing its underlying cause often leads to failure and frustration. Breaking old habits also requires courage and persistence. Habits are deeply rooted in the brain. They are reinforced by neural pathways that have strengthened over time. Changing them is not instantaneous. It often involves discomfort, resistance, and repeated attempts. Many people give up too soon, expecting quick fixes or miraculous breakthroughs. The truth is that lasting change comes through consistent effort, repeated practice, and a willingness to tolerate temporary discomfort for long-term gain. Each time we resist an old habit, we strengthen new neural connections, gradually rewiring our brain to support new behaviors. This process may feel slow, but its cumulative effect is transformative, unlocking potential that was previously dormant. One of the most powerful aspects of breaking old habits is the freedom it creates. Old habits, especially limiting ones, act like invisible chains. They dictate how we respond to challenges, interact with others, and pursue opportunities. When we break these habits, we are no longer constrained by past patterns. We gain the ability to choose our responses, take actions aligned with our goals, and approach life with intentionality rather than reaction. This freedom is not just external, it is internal. It fosters confidence, self-efficacy, and a sense of agency, reminding us that we are not prisoners of our past but architects of our future. The process of breaking old habits also reveals the importance of environment and support. Habits are rarely formed or maintained in isolation. They are influenced by context, social circles, and daily routines. To break a habit effectively, it is often necessary to adjust these factors. This might mean changing physical surroundings, creating new routines, or surrounding oneself with people who encourage growth rather than reinforce limitation. By shaping the environment to support the desired change, we reduce reliance on willpower alone and create a system that makes new habits more natural and sustainable. Breaking old habits is intimately connected with identity. Many habits persist because they are tied to how we see ourselves. We might say, just not a morning person, or I'm not someone who exercises, and these beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies. To break the habit, we must also shift the narrative we hold about ourselves. We must envision the type of person we want to become and align our actions with that identity. Every time we act in accordance with this new identity, we reinforce it, making the new habit feel authentic and sustainable. Over time, behavior and identity merge, creating a powerful alignment that unlocks potential far beyond the habit itself. Another key insight is that breaking old habits is not just about removing negative behaviors. It is about creating space for positive ones. Habits are like soil in which new behaviors can grow. If the soil is overrun with weeds, old habits that consume time, energy, and focus, there is little room for growth. By clearing out these habits, we make space for deliberate actions, intentional choices, and productive routines that propel us forward. This principle applies across all areas of life, from health and productivity to relationships and creativity. The act of breaking a habit is, in essence, an act of self-liberation, allowing the best version of ourselves to emerge. It is also important to recognize that setbacks are a natural part of breaking habits. Old patterns have a tendency to reassert themselves, especially in times of stress, fatigue, or emotional strain. This does not indicate failure. It is part of the process. Each lapse is an opportunity to learn, adjust, and recommit. The key is resilience, the willingness to continue despite temporary setbacks. Over time, repeated efforts create momentum, making the new habit stronger and the old one weaker. Persistence, not perfection, is the cornerstone of sustainable transformation. Breaking old habits ultimately unlocks true potential because it removes barriers that have held us back. Potential is not just about ability, it is about alignment. When limiting habits are removed, we can access creativity, focus, energy, and courage that were previously obstructed. Opportunities that seemed out of reach become attainable. Relationships improve because we engage more consciously. Career and personal goals are pursued with clarity and consistency. Life begins to feel more expansive, purposeful, and aligned with what truly matters. This is why habit transformation is so profound. It reshapes not just what we do, but who we are. Finally, breaking old habits is an act of empowerment. It reminds us that we are not passive observers in our own lives. We have the capacity to change, grow, and evolve. The process may be challenging, but it is deeply rewarding. By confronting habits that no longer serve us and deliberately choosing new patterns, we reclaim agency over our actions, decisions, and destiny. The key to unlocking true potential is not just in acquiring new skills or knowledge, but in shedding the limitations imposed by habits that have outlived their usefulness. Every habit broken, every pattern disrupted, every choice aligned with purpose brings us closer to the fullest expression of our potential. In the end, breaking old habits is more than a personal transformation. It is a gateway to freedom, growth, and fulfillment. Habits shape lives, but they do not define us unless we allow them to. By recognizing, understanding, and intentionally changing them, we unlock the door to possibilities that were always within reach. True potential is realized not through chance, but through conscious action, persistence, and the courage to change. Every step taken to break an old habit is a step toward becoming the person we are capable of being, creating a life defined not by limitation, but by opportunity, purpose, and extraordinary achievement. If you want, I can continue with heading 4 in the same style, so that we can move closer to completing the full motivational speech script. Do you want me to do that? Every action we take, every decision we make, has consequences that extend far beyond what we can immediately see. In life, we often focus on the direct outcomes of our choices, the tangible results that affect us personally. But the truth is that even small actions create ripples that spread outward, touching people, environments, and circumstances in ways we may never fully realize. This is the essence of the ripple effect, the recognition that one rule, one guiding principle, or one deliberate decision has the power to influence everything around us. Understanding and harnessing this effect can transform not only our own lives, but the lives of everyone we encounter. The ripple effect begins with clarity. When we adopt a single rule, whether it is a principle of honesty, empathy, diligence, or service, it becomes the foundation for our behavior. This rule acts as a reference point, guiding our interactions, shaping our decisions, and influencing the energy we bring into every situation. Its impact is magnified because it is consistent. People around us begin to recognize the pattern, respond to it, and adjust their own behaviors accordingly. This creates a chain reaction, where a single guiding principle is no longer isolated to one individual but spreads outward, subtly reshaping the dynamics of teams, communities, and networks. Consider how a simple rule consistently applied can transform relationships. If one person commits to always listen before responding, the effect is immediate and visible. Conversations change, misunderstandings decrease, trust grows. Colleagues and friends begin to mirror this behavior, fostering a culture of attentiveness and respect. One small rule, consistently followed, elevates not only individual interactions, but the quality of communication and connection throughout the broader environment. This demonstrates that influence is rarely about grand gestures or forceful persuasion. It is about the quiet, consistent application of principles that others can see, feel, and emulate. The ripple effect also operates in professional settings, where the behavior of a single leader or team member can define culture. A manager who adopts a rule of recognizing effort over outcome, for example, changes the atmosphere of an entire workplace. Employees feel valued, collaboration increases, and innovation is encouraged because people are no longer afraid of failure. They understand that effort, integrity, and commitment are what truly matter. In this way, one person's adherence to a principle becomes a catalyst for a broader cultural transformation. The initial action may seem small, but its influence spreads, affecting productivity, morale, and organizational resilience in profound ways. Ripple effects are amplified by the principle of modeling. People naturally observe and imitate the behaviors of those around them, especially those they respect or see as role models. When one person consistently lives by a rule, it sets a standard consciously or unconsciously for others to follow. Children, colleagues, friends, and even casual acquaintances pick up on the cues, adopting behaviors, attitudes, and approaches that reflect the guiding principle they witness. The influence multiplies not because of coercion, but because consistency breeds trust and credibility. Over time, what began as a personal commitment transforms into a shared norm, influencing outcomes far beyond the individual's immediate circle. The ripple effect also demonstrates the interconnectedness of our actions. One decision made in alignment with a principle can affect countless variables that seem unrelated at first glance. For instance, choosing to approach challenges with patience rather than frustration not only improves personal decision-making, but also reduces stress for those around you. Teams function more effectively, families feel more supported, and opportunities for collaboration expand. The initial act, a single choice guided by a rule, sets off a chain of events that produces outcomes far greater than what was anticipated. This illustrates a fundamental truth. Small intentional actions often have exponential effects. It is also important to recognize that the ripple effect is not limited to positive actions. Rules or habits that are negative, destructive, or careless can create ripples as well, but in harmful ways. A pattern of dishonesty, selfishness, or neglect spreads tension, mistrust, and inefficiency. This is why choosing a principle carefully and applying it consistently is so critical. Every action becomes part of a larger network of influence, and the quality of that influence depends on the integrity and intentionality behind it. Understanding this interconnectedness emphasizes the responsibility we carry in how we live and act. One principle, well chosen and faithfully applied, can transform environments and experiences for the better. The ripple effect also plays a profound role in communities and society. Social movements, cultural shifts, and even changes in public behavior often begin with a single individual or a small group committed to a principle. Their consistent actions, speaking truth, acting ethically, serving others, or promoting justice, create waves that extend outward, inspiring others, challenging norms, and ultimately altering collective behavior. The lesson here is clear. Meaningful change does not require the efforts of everyone at once. It begins with a single commitment, a single rule, and the courage to act on it consistently. Over time, the impact spreads far beyond what the originator could imagine. Another dimension of the ripple effect is personal growth. When one adopts a rule and observes its effects on others, it reinforces the value of that principle, strengthening commitment and confidence. Witnessing positive change as a result of one's actions is motivating, creating a feedback loop that encourages further adherence. This is why principles, when consistently practiced, not only influence the external environment, but also reinforce internal growth. One rule applied over time shapes character, strengthens discipline, and enhances judgment, creating a virtuous cycle where personal development and external impact feed into each other. The ripple effect also illustrates the importance of patience and consistency. Ripples take time to travel, and the effects are not always immediate or visible. One act of integrity, one gesture of kindness, or one decision to live by a principle may not yield instant recognition or results. Yet like ripples on water, the impact spreads gradually, touching points far removed from the origin. This teaches the value of persistence, reminding us that meaningful influence is rarely about immediate gratification. It is about long-term commitment to living by principles that matter. Finally, the ripple effect is a powerful reminder that no action is truly isolated. Every choice we make interacts with the choices of others and the circumstances around us, creating patterns of influence that extend in ways we cannot always predict. By adopting a single guiding rule and applying it consistently, we participate in shaping the world around us. What begins as a personal commitment has the potential to grow into a broader movement, touching lives, fostering connection, and creating positive change in ways that ripple outward indefinitely. The power of one rule lies not just in what it does for us, but in what it inspires in the world around us. In essence, the ripple effect demonstrates that influence is not about scale, it is about alignment and consistency. One person guided by one principle has the capacity to impact countless others. This impact may manifest in relationships, culture, communities, or society at large. The ripples may be subtle at first, but over time, their cumulative effect is profound. Understanding this principle empowers us to live intentionally, recognizing that every choice carries weight and that one consistent rule has the power to shape not only our own lives but the lives of those we touch. By embracing this perspective, we realize that transformation begins with one decision, one rule, and one deliberate act. Yet the consequences of that commitment can be limitless, far-reaching, and life-changing. If you want, I can continue with heading 5 in the same style. So we will have a complete motivational speech script ready to go. Do you want me to do that? Insight is powerful, but insight alone is not transformation. Many people spend countless hours reflecting, reading, or learning, accumulating knowledge that never translates into meaningful change. The gap between understanding what should be done and actually doing it is where most potential is lost. Taking action today is the bridge between thought and reality, between aspiration and achievement. It is the moment when awareness, clarity, and intention meet effort, commitment, and courage. To turn insight into lasting change, we must act decisively, consistently, and with purpose, understanding that the smallest step forward has the power to alter the course of our lives. The first principle of taking action is immediacy. Too often we defer action because conditions are not perfect. We do not feel ready, or we are waiting for motivation to strike. Yet waiting for the right moment is a trap that keeps transformation perpetually in the future. The reality is that change begins with a single choice, a single step taken in the present. Momentum builds from action, not from contemplation. By committing to act today, even imperfectly, we activate a process that propels us forward. Action is not only a means to an end. It is the catalyst that clarifies priorities, sharpens focus, and reveals obstacles that cannot be identified from a distance. Taking action requires courage. Every step toward change involves uncertainty, risk, and discomfort. Old habits, societal expectations, and internal fears all resist transformation. Acting in the face of these forces is what separates those who achieve lasting change from those who remain stagnant. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move forward despite fear. Each action taken strengthens confidence, resilience, and self-efficacy, creating a feedback loop where effort produces growth and growth fuels further action. Without courage, insight remains abstract, like a map that is never used to navigate a journey. Consistency is the second pillar of turning insight into lasting change. One action alone is rarely enough to transform a life. Change compounds over time through repeated effort aligned with intention. Small, consistent actions create momentum, reinforcing new habits, perspectives, and behaviors. Just as a single drop of water can carve a canyon over time, consistent action gradually reshapes the landscape of our lives. Consistency also communicates commitment to ourselves and to those around us, strengthening accountability and fostering trust. It is through repeated action, sustained over weeks, months, and years, that insight solidifies into transformation. Equally important is clarity of purpose. Taking action without a clear direction is like sailing without a compass. Energy is expended, but progress is minimal. Insight must be translated into a specific vision or goal, providing a framework for action. When we know what we want to achieve and why it matters, every step becomes intentional. Purpose aligns decisions with values, priorities, and long-term objectives, ensuring that action is meaningful rather than random. This clarity turns simple effort into strategic movement, magnifying the impact of each decision and accelerating progress toward lasting change. Action also requires the willingness to experiment and adapt. Rarely does change follow a straight line. Plans fail, obstacles arise, and unexpected challenges test our resolve. By taking action and observing results, we gain feedback that allows us to refine strategies, adjust behavior, and correct course. This iterative process is essential for sustainable change. Insight provides the foundation, provides the laboratory in which knowledge is tested and strengthened. Flexibility and responsiveness to experience transform mistakes from failures into opportunities for growth. Accountability magnifies the effect of action. Sharing goals, principles, or rules with others increases commitment and ensures follow-through. Humans are social beings, and the presence of accountability partners, mentors, or supportive communities reinforces persistence. When action is observed, encouraged, or supported by others, the likelihood of maintaining momentum grows exponentially. Accountability does not replace personal responsibility, but it amplifies it, turning individual effort into collective reinforcement and creating an environment that nurtures lasting transformation. Action is also about embracing imperfection. Many people hesitate to act because they fear making mistakes, failing publicly, or appearing inadequate. Yet perfection is rarely the precursor to progress. Insight becomes powerful when combined with the courage to act imperfect. Each step, even when flawed, generates learning, builds experience, and reinforces commitment. Over time, imperfect action accumulates into mastery, confidence, and tangible results. Progress, not perfection, is the engine of transformation, and action is the fuel that drives it. Another dimension of taking action is prioritization. Not all actions are equal. Insight must be translated into focused efforts that address the most meaningful areas first. By identifying high-impact actions and committing to them, we ensure that energy and resources are applied effectively. This requires discernment, discipline, and a willingness to let go of distractions, minor tasks, or low-value activities. Action guided by insight is not simply activity. It is intentional, strategic, and aligned with what matters most. The ripple effect of action cannot be overstated. One decision to act today influences not only the individual, but also the people, systems, and environments around them. Family, colleagues, friends, and communities are affected by our choices, often in ways that are not immediately visible. Acting on insight demonstrates leadership, accountability, and initiative, inspiring others to follow suit. Transformation becomes contagious, spreading outward and amplifying the original intent. By acting decisively, we not only change ourselves, but also create positive impact in the lives of those we touch. Reflection enhances the power of action. Taking steps forward is critical, but periodically assessing progress ensures that actions remain aligned with goals and principles. Reflection allows us to celebrate successes, learn from setbacks, and recalibrate strategies. It transforms action from mechanical effort into purposeful advancement. Without reflection, action can become repetitive or misaligned. With it, every step is deliberate, informed, and amplified. Insight and action form a continuous cycle. Understanding guides movement, and experience refines understanding, resulting in sustainable growth and lasting change. Ultimately, taking action today is about seizing responsibility for our own transformation. Insight provides knowledge, clarity, and direction, but change is realized only through deliberate movement. Waiting for external conditions, perfect timing, or ideal circumstances delays growth indefinitely. Transformation is not a distant possibility. It is a present choice. By acting with courage, consistency, clarity, adaptability, and accountability, we convert potential into reality. Every action taken reinforces identity, strengthens habits, and builds momentum, creating a foundation for lasting change that shapes both personal and external outcomes. The process of turning insight into action is both empowering and transformative. It reminds us that we are not passive participants in life. We are active creators of experience. Each step, no matter how small, has meaning and impact. Every decision to act reinforces our values, clarifies our purpose, and expands our capacity for growth. Taking action today transforms abstract understanding into tangible results, dreams into reality, and potential into achievement. It is the bridge between what we know and who we are capable of becoming. In the final analysis, the power of insight lies not in thought, but in execution. Understanding alone cannot change our lives. Action is the essential ingredient that brings transformation to life. By choosing to act today, by taking responsibility for our growth, and by committing to consistent, purposeful effort, we set in motion a cascade of progress that accumulates into lasting change. Insight becomes wisdom, intention becomes habit, and possibility becomes reality. Taking action today is the ultimate declaration that we are ready to shape our future, unlock our potential, and live a life defined by purpose, achievement, and meaningful impact.